Now, we all love a good horror movie full to the brim with death and destruction. And whilst we're all in agreement that cheering on the chainsawing of helpless teens through the middle might be entertainment at its finest, there is a part of horror that is arguably even better. Really, there is a very specific joy in watching a horror villain getting their brains blown out, or blown up, and in some rare cases blown in, that's for sure. Especially when it comes after hours of playing their unfairly disadvantaged game. It's pretty easy to see why we love it so much, as an audience we spend such a long time building up a seething, unbelievable hatred for these usually vile creatures. There's a triumphant catharsis involved in having your fantasies realised about defeating a villain, one you know deep down you would have no chance against, with a smart, innovative plan. So let's take a look at those villain deaths in horror movies that hit just that little bit sweeter. As there are plenty out there that dig into the satisfaction sweet spot by wiping out their big bads in tremendously enjoyable fashion. I am the invulnerable Ash from What Culture, and these are the 10 most satisfying horror movie villain deaths. 10. Darcy, Green Room. What makes any villain's death satisfying is the fact that our hero seems to be against insurmountable odds, and that is the case with almost every single entry on this list. What makes Darcy's death so wonderful though is just how utterly hopeless everything seems for the protagonists of Green Room, a band who've been trapped in a venue by Nazis who need to eliminate witnesses of their crime. Hell, before our heroes manage to even get anywhere near Big Bad Darcy, Reese is left to bleed out by one of the skinheads, and Sam is mauled to death by pit bulls. Oh, and did I mention that Pat's arm is being held together with duct tape after having it hacked up by a machete? By this point, Pat and Amber are so woefully damaged both psychologically and physically, and still so completely outnumbered that there just seems no way that they're getting out of this nightmare. That's why it makes it all the sweeter when Darcy not only eats lead, but does so as he flees. Good. 9. Jack Torrance, The Shining. There is never anything satisfying about someone's descent into insanity, but only if they were a good enough person to begin with, and that ain't true of Jack Torrance at all. There are a number of theories surrounding Torrance's behaviour prior to the opening moments of the film, but there's plenty of concrete evidence if you pay attention that he has always been a piece of trash. Then, throughout the movie, we are treated to Torrance's persistent violent outbursts, including the attempted assault and murder of his wife and child, as well as the gruesome, bloody murder of good-natured caretaker and protector Halloran. So all of this makes it all the more satisfying when he's outsmarted by his own child son, Danny, and left to freeze to death by the ground's hedge maze. 8. Sadie, The Invitation. It is almost impossible to pick just one death from the absolute creep fest that is The Invitation. Do you go with David, the creepy as hell ringleader of the most uncomfortable dinner party of all time and would-be mass murderer? Well, sure, you could do. Those are some solid credentials. Or how about Pruitt, the hulking, soft-spoken giant who killed his wife in a fit of rage? Both are pretty good candidates, but they got beaten to the punch by an inch or so by Sadie. I mean, when has a giggling, wide-eyed hippie girl that your pals met at some sort of weird retreat, and whom they subsequently invited to live with them, ever been a sane and totally non-violent person? In my experience, it's only been 1 out of the 15 times that it's happened. Out of everyone in The Invitation, Sadie was undoubtedly the most unsettling. Her violent, explosive outburst near the end of the film was completely expected, yet still makes you jump out of your skin, rather than crawl out of it like the rest of her behaviour. Plus, she was just super annoying, man. 7. Castillo, House of the Dead. Look, no one is saying that House of the Dead has a highly cerebral storyline or stellar performances or is even remotely good or any of that business, but come on, you don't always want lobster or scallops. Sometimes you just want a bucket of chicken, or a bucket of burgers, or a big bucket of Uwe Boll horror. Just as long as it comes in a bucket. Castillo's death in House of the Dead is satisfying firstly because he's got all the right tropes going for him. A legendary figure who's part of the setting's history, check. An evil priest excommunicated for being a sort of necromancer, check. Used his own experiments in order to become immortal and raise the dead, that is another big check. Secondly, his death is satisfying for the simple fact that it is visceral as all hell. He survives an explosion, so logically he gets into a sword fight afterwards, during which he is beheaded. An inconvenience, sure, but not as much as you would think. 6. O'Neill, A Field in England. The whole experience of A Field in England feels otherworldly. You feel lost throughout the entire movie. Not just because we spend the whole time in a nondescript field, but because we feel outside the realms of reality at all times as well. Nothing in this movie embodies this feeling of unreality more so than Michael Smiley's O'Neill. O'Neill is a creature of pure malevolence, and creature is the apt word here as nothing about him says human whatsoever. A wizard seemingly pulled from the ground via mystical means after a long slumber, O'Neill wastes no time in making what was already by no means a dream for our protagonists into an absolute living nightmare. O'Neill's death is satisfying for a couple of reasons. The obvious one is that we all love an evil villain's downfall, and no one plays an evil villain quite like Michael Smiley does, but the main reason really is that his death takes place during the kaleidoscopic high point of a film that is practically defined by its hallucinogenic cinematography and visuals. 5. The Shark, Jaws. Now, as most know, the reason we don't see the shark right up until the end is, well, because it looked crap. Seriously, Google an image of what that shark looked like outside of the film and it is nowhere near as intimidating as it is during screen time. There are a lot of pieces that work in conjunction to make Jaws such a terrifying experience and to make the final confrontation with the shark so good. The music, the fake-outs, all of it. However, the reason that the shark's death is so immensely satisfying is incredibly simple, and it's this. Sharks really suck. Now, we all know the statistics about how low shark attacks actually are, and all that nonsense about vending machines being more likely to kill you in some sort of animatronic rage or something. But come on, try and tell me that a potential shark attack doesn't still terrify you. And try and tell me that it isn't kind of cool to watch a shark get blown up and know you're safe from it at last. 4. Xenomorph, Alien. H.R. Giger's design for the titular alien will always go down as one of the most horrifying creatures to ever grace the silver screen. How could something jet black, gigantic, and slimy not be absolutely terrifying in every way? Oh, and there's the fact that it has a mini mouth inside its regular mouth. Oh, and the fact it procreates by latching onto someone's mouth and having its spawn burst out of their stomach. Oh, and also its blood is corrosive. Why not, hey? There isn't a single moment in Alien where it feels as though Ripley and her crew have any hope whatsoever against the xenomorph. And, to be fair, most of them don't. One by one, they're picked off by this walking atrocity, until only Ripley is left. And then it finds its way onto the escape shuttle and even latches on after the airlock is blown, making it all the sweeter when Ripley finally blasts it into the inky darkness of space. Plus, just thank God that the cat survived. The true satisfaction of this whole movie series is that Jones lives. 3. Annie Wilkes, Misery. Out of everyone and every creature on this list, there has probably never existed a more terrifying villain than Annie Wilkes. There's just something inherently creepy about someone who not only actively avoids swearing, but replaces those words with folksy little phrases. If you go on a date with someone who uses phrases like dirty birds, then yeah, you're gonna get shanked up good and proper by the end of the day. Over the course of Misery, we see Annie psychologically torture protagonist Paul Sheldon, refuse him the pain medication that he desperately needs and has become addicted to, hobbles him, and also comes to light that during her time as a nurse, she also just happened to kill a whole bunch of kids. All this makes it far more satisfying to see Annie get her eventual comeuppance, and it is a gruesome comeuppance at that. In fact, in this case, you could argue that what's far more satisfying than Annie's eventual death is the fact that Paul chokes her with the pages of his Misery manuscript in a delicious bit of irony, wherein what she loved more than anything in the world ends up playing a part in her eventual death. 2. The Armitage Family, Get Out. Jordan Peele didn't concern himself with any one particular brand of racism in Get Out. He was more concerned with how racism permeates through every aspect of society, whether we're aware of it or not. Racism isn't always fueled by pure hatred. I mean, is there anything more cringeworthy or skin-crawling than Rose and her parents' wokeness? And then we get to the logical extreme by the end. This family of middle-class white people have been body-snatching black people. Be it Armitage patriarch Dean being impaled on a deer head, or matriarch Missy and that creepy-ass freak Jeremy, every single family death in Get Out is just oh so satisfying because of everything Chris has gone through at the hands of the Armitage clan from the get-go. However, I think we can all agree that Rose's death is the most satisfying of all because, really, if you ever end up dating someone who eats dry cereal with a glass of milk, then please, for the love of Christ, get out. The clue is in the title. 1. John Doe, 7. Now, I know what you're thinking. This isn't satisfying at all. The villain wins. Detective Mills gives into his trappings and we're left empty and scarred by the end of the movie. But really, dear watcher, once you get over the whole trauma of wanting the detectives to come up tops in this, isn't it wholly satisfying to see such a perfectly evil plan play out without a single hitch? John Doe predicts everything that will happen with eerie surety, and right to the letter, it does. It's not a satisfying death in that he bites the dust, but rather that his plan is executed so perfectly. It's horrible, it's dark, it's reprehensible, and it makes you feel icky for respecting his smarts. Of course, he also encapsulates pure, unadulterated evil, and gets his comeuppance in the end in the only way he should. It is a strange satisfaction, but it is there all the same. A 7-point stinger only the most intelligent of villains could pull off. Damn you, Doe! You really did deserve your fate, either way. And that's our list. What other villain deaths were oh so satisfying to see? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I've been Ash and this has been What Culture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.